Hello there, you're tuned in to 7Edition with me, Amanda Ko. These are your headlines. Arts and science stream will not be abolished in Form 4 next year. Prime Minister attends Joko Widodo's inauguration in Jakarta. And British Premier sends unsigned letter to EU seeking Brexit extension. Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad arrived in Jakarta today for a working visit to attend the inauguration of Joko Widodo, better known as Jokowi, as the President of Indonesia. The special aircraft carrying him and his wife, Tun Dr. Siti Hasmah Muhammad Ali, arrived this morning. They were greeted by Foreign Minister Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah, Malaysian Ambassador to Indonesia, Datuk Zainal Abidin Bakar, and Indonesian Minister of Villages, Disadvantaged Regions and Transmigration, Eko Putro Sanjojo. Datuk Zainal Abidin said the PM's presence is a manifestation of the close relations between the two leaders and the countries, and the appointment of Jokowi for the second term would be heralding a new chapter, further strengthening relations between Malaysia and Indonesia.
Now Jokowi sworn in for his second and final term on Sunday amid tight security in the capital Jakarta, where some 30,000 soldiers and police have stood guard overnight. 58-year-old Jokowi, who won the April presidential election with 55.5% of the vote against his challenger, Prabowo Subianto, took his oath of office in Parliament alongside new Vice President Maruf Amin, 76, at around 3 p.m. Jakarta time. Standing before lawmakers and regional senators that make up the People's Consultative Assembly, or MPR, the country's 7th president also delivered his first speech to lay out his priorities in the next 5-year term. Southeast Asia's biggest economy has been struggling with global economic slowdown, growing by only 5%, lower than the 7% promised by Jokowi when he first took office in 2014.
The decision by the Ministry of Education to ban the controversial Comic Belt and Road initiative was done on the advice of the Home Ministry, KDN. Education Minister Dr. Mazli Malik said it was his ministry's policy to get the approval of the Home Ministry before any political comics can be distributed.
Jadi kita bertindak di atas nasihat Kementerian Dalam Negeri. Jadi cuma sebarang komik politik, buku politik ataupun propaganda untuk diedarkan pada sekolah, kalau boleh kena melalui salurannya lah, dan kalau boleh melalui KDN, kerana kita mempunyai undang-undang. Jadi kita bertindak di atas landasan rule of law ataupun landasan undang-undang. Apa-apa hal kita kena rujuk kepada KDN kerana bahan cipta ni ada dia punya akta sendiri.
He was replying to the pressure from 43 grassroots leaders, including several DAP assemblymen who protested his ministry's move to stop the comics distribution at schools. Dr. Mazli was met after officiating an event at Teluk Kerang, Tanjung Piai, Johor this morning. Meanwhile, Dr. Mazli says his ministry will not abolish arts and science stream in the Form 4 next year, but will instead announce the abolishment when the time comes. However, no policy announcements have been made yet. Dr. Mazli said his ministry would not make the decision in a hurry and would instead review all aspects, including engagement and employment. Commenting on previous media reports on his statement that streaming will be abolished from next year, Dr. Mazli said he was only commenting on his vision for the future, and it was indeed not a policy announcement. He further explained that he wanted to ensure students are not limited to only one stream, where science students cannot take up literature and art students cannot take up science subjects. He said that in the last 5 years, not many students have entered the science stream because it required good results, while art students who may be interested in biology could not study it. The Human Resource Ministry clarified today that there is no need to obtain the agreement of the Malaysian Trade Union Congress (MTUC) and the Malaysian Employers Federation (MEF) for any proposal to amend the Industrial Relations Act 1967. In a statement today, the ministry said that there is a need to hold consultations with employer and employee representatives on matters relating to International Labour Organization (ILO) activities. The convention only stresses on the need to hold consultation and not to seek agreement as claimed by MTUC and MEF. The ministry is also holding consultations not only with MTUC and MEF, but also other stakeholders, including non-government organizations, on other matters besides ILO activities. In fact, the National Labour Advisory Council (NLAC) states the similar requirement, which is to hold consultation and to seek agreement. The ministry wishes to assure all parties, including workers, that the amendment to the Act was made for the first time, and this is a holistic amendment to ensure that the Act hits to the compliance of international labour standards. In other news, Kelantan Customs have busted a drug syndicate trafficking 270,000 yaba pills worth 2.7 million ringgit. Now, State Customs Department Director Muhammad Rakbi Matsaud said the seizure was conducted in an operation dubbed Ops Sina 2019 on Wednesday noon on a Thai-registered Toyota Camry car parked at Wakaf Chi Ye in Pasir Mas. An inspection of the car found no valid documents and authorities seized the vehicle worth 30,000 ringgit after 6 hours when no one came to claim the car. 45 yellow packages containing horse pills were found hidden in the back of the car boot, which has been modified. They are believed to be destined for the domestic and foreign markets. The case was being investigated under the Dangerous Drugs Act and, if convicted, could be sentenced to death. In the meantime, the Customs Department is urging people who have information on smuggling, storing, possessing, and transporting prohibited items such as cigarettes or other contraband goods are requested to report directly to the Customs Department hotline as shown on the screen. In Pahang, the decomposing body of a local man was found floating near a water pump at Tasik Paya Bungur near Jalan Kuantan Maran earlier today. A group of villagers who were earlier involved in a gotong royong program near the lake had informed the police about the discovery about 10 a.m. It was learnt that the victim was believed to have been murdered elsewhere before his body, with his hands and legs bound, was dumped at the lake. A police source said the bloated body, which was fully dressed, was found floating several meters from the pump house. The victim was believed to have been dead for more than 24 hours. The body was sent to the Tengku Ampuan Afsan Hospital for post-mortem. Several families from Srijaya Maran gathered at the site as news broke out that the body belonged to one of their relatives who had been missing since Friday. A detailed announcement on land acquisition in Kampung Baru in the federal capital will be made this Thursday at the Kuala Lumpur City Hall. Federal Territories Minister Khalid Abdul Samad today said he had met and discussed with Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and Kampung Baru Development Corporation on the issue. Khalid said at a media conference after the Kuala Lumpur City Hall's 50th Enforcement Day celebration at the Dataran Merdeka that he expects a successful outcome from the upcoming announcement.
Secara umumnya dalam pertemuan saya dengan ahli lembaga Perbadanan Pembangunan Kampung Baru, saya dapati bahawa mereka kesemuanya kelihatan begitu upbeat, begitu seronok dan confident dengan apa yang telah dan sedang berlaku, dan ramai menggambarkan satu sikap yang optimistik, yang positif dan optimis bahawa kali ini insya-Allah apa yang sedang dibentangkan dan diusahakan insya-Allah akan dapat mencapai kejayaan.
On October 6th, Tun Dr. Mahathir said the land in Kampung Baru, Kuala Lumpur will be sold to a government agency to be developed, not to other parties. He said that the government agency would help landowners develop Kampung Baru without neglecting the original features of the location. On September 21st, the government offered to buy land in the village at the rate of 850 ringgit per square foot as compensation to landowners and heirs in return for the redevelopment of the area. However, most residents felt the offer was unreasonable given the strategic location of the settlement and asked the government to review it. A wild saltwater crocodile in Kuala Neros, Terengganu that became a viral sensation when locals started feeding it has returned after going missing for 2 years. When first found, it was only about 1 meter long. 5 years later, it is now an estimated 3 meters long. It had become a local tourist attraction, with locals flocking to see it at the lake.
According to a Kampung Tepo resident, Abdul Rahman Harun, locals have been visiting the village to see the crocodile, affectionately dubbed Mamat. Every day, Mamat can be seen on the banks of the lake, waiting for villagers to feed it.
Kalau dia lapor, dia mari lah. Kalau dia kenyang, tak mari. Dia kenyang, dia adok gitu je. Kalau dia lapor, dia mari. Dia mari tepi nak makan. Tak panggil pun, dia mari. Kalau dia lapor.
Dia biasa beri makan dia?
Kepala ayam.
Kepala ayam lah.
Orang lain kena beli. Kepala ayam dia ambil saja.
Locals are asking the government to leave Mamat alone in the lake as they claim it's docile and not a threat to residents. They are worried if it's moved to another location, it would not survive for long as it cannot hunt for itself. In 2016, Mamat became an internet sensation and often surfaced when its name was called out. However, it disappeared when efforts were made in September 2017 to relocate it.
Malaysia is not realizing its full economic growth potential, not having moved up the value chain due to its limited use of technology. Economic Affairs Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali said, as an example, skilled manpower comprised of only 27.2% of total manpower last year, noting that the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030, WKB 2030, formulated by the government is aimed at giving a new injection to the economy to ensure the country's development is more sustainable, inclusive and competitive.
Datuk Sri Muhammad Azmin said this when launching national-level celebrations of World Statistics Day and the 70th anniversary of the Department of Statistics Malaysia in Muar Johor today.
Penstrukturan semula ekonomi negara akan memberi tumpuan kepada penggunaan teknologi tinggi serta inovasi yang dirancangkan melalui pembangunan R&D. Ikhtiar ini akan memacu transisi ekonomi negara ke arah yang lebih progresif, berpaksikan ilmu dan bernilai tinggi dengan penyertaan masyarakat yang menyeluruh di seluruh peringkat.
The Economic Affairs Minister said the main principle of WKB 2030, as stressed by Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, is ensuring equitability of outcomes as an economic strategy. For this, he said collecting, compiling and analysing data and statistics to facilitate the formulation and monitoring of policies should be conducted in a scientific, creative and innovative manner.
We'll take a short break, but when we come back, vape like a pro baby goes viral. Stay with us. Welcome back. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson reluctantly wrote to Brussels asking for a Brexit extension after MPs voted on Saturday to force him into seeking a delay beyond October 31st. But Johnson, who has pinned his premiership on getting Britain out of the European Union on time, refused to sign the letter he sent to European Council President Donald Tusk. The Conservative leader, who had to send a letter to abide by the law, also sent a second signed letter insisting he was not seeking an extension to the Brexit deadline, which has already been postponed twice. In a day of high drama in the House of Commons, MPs declined to give their backing to the revised withdrawal agreement Johnson struck with the EU this week until the legislation needed to ratify it has passed. Having failed to back a divorce deal, they triggered a law requiring Johnson to write to EU leaders by the end of the day asking to delay Brexit to avoid the risk that Britain crashes out in less than a fortnight. Johnson nonetheless said he remained confident of completing the ratification process by October 31st. Meanwhile, as lawmakers huddled inside the House of Commons on Saturday, hundreds of thousands of protesters gathered outside the Palace of Westminster to demand that voters be given the final say on Brexit. Organisers said the protest drew about 1 million people, which would make it one of the largest demonstrations in British history. The stated desire of the marchers was to call for a second referendum on any Brexit deal that lawmakers approve, but most had a more basic goal. No Brexit was the chant that echoed through the stately streets and grand avenues of the city on a crisp and sunny autumn afternoon. Large crowds of Hong Kongers defied a police ban and held an illegal march on Sunday, numbers swollen by anger over the recent stabbing and beating of 2 protesters. Authorities had forbidden the march in Tsim Sha Tsui, a densely packed shopping district filled with luxury boutiques and hotels, citing public safety and previous violence from hardcore protesters. But tens of thousands joined the unsanctioned rally regardless, as the movement tries to keep up pressure on the city's pro-Beijing leaders after nearly 5 months of rallies and political unrest. Tensions were running high after the leader of the group organizing the weekend rally was hospitalized by men wielding hammers earlier in the week. On Saturday night, a man handing out pro-democracy flyers was stabbed in the neck and stomach. Now let's hop on to Clickbait, where we take a look at what's trending and making the rounds in the cyber world today. What's that baby smoking? Many netizens on Twitter were alarmed this week after watching a video clip of a toddler taking puffs from a vape pod like a pro. Reaction to the video, which has over 185,000 views now, has been strong, with Malaysians not just expressing their concern for the toddler, but also voicing out against vaping. In the short 20 seconds video, the toddler is seen vaping with ease as he exhales a huge round of smoke through his nostrils and mouth. The saddest part is that the toddler looks so natural at doing it, as if he's done it multiple times. The video was shared on Twitter by Dr. Khairul Hafiz, the founder of a medical myth-busting group called #MedTweetMY, who questioned the distressing incident. With over 4,000 retweets of the original post, many are angered at such negligence by the toddler's parents, pointing out the detrimental effects that vaping could have on such fragile lungs, those of babies and young kids, and what effect such neglect can have on the future generation. Children model the behavior of their parents and at times are constantly absorbing actions done by the ones they love. So, a reminder to all parents out there, please be a good example to your kids.